Hi, Sullivan. I'm going to read you a story about Curious George and the dump truck. I guess you're right, the owner replied. Wait a minute. Here it is, Curious George and the dump truck. This is George. He lived with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. This morning, George was playing with his toys when what? He heard a funny noise outside his window. There's his window. What could be going on out there? Turn the page. It was a duck, of course. Then George heard oops, the light's going on. Then George heard a quack. What was another quack? It sounded like quack. George was curious. What could be quacking underneath his window? Here we go. It was a duck, of course. Then George heard another quack and another. Why, it was more than just one duck. It was a mother duck and 5 small ducklings. Ducklings were something new to George. How funny they were. He watched the ducklings waddle after their mother. Where were they going? George was not curious for long. Soon he was waddling after Mother Duck too, and then he could see where they were going. Where are they going? The ducks waddled all the way to the park. George loved the park. Today he saw children flying kites and gardeners planting trees by the road. Then George saw something he had never seen in the park before. I think it might be a dump truck. He saw a dump truck. It was a dump truck, and it was big. In fact, George was not even so tall as one wheel. George forgot all about the ducklings and stopped to look. Ooh, he likes that truck. That's a big truck. It would be fun to sit in such a big truck, thought George. No one was inside the truck, and the window was wide open. George could not resist. Ooh, that's dangerous, George. Don't do that, George. That's very dangerous. But sitting in a big truck was not so fun for a little monkey after all. George could not even see out the window. Whoa, he was too small. If there were something to climb on, what would that make a good step for a monkey? He needs to be able to see. It did. Now George could see out the window. He saw grass and a family eating a picnic. Suddenly George heard a low rumbling sound. Was it his stomach rumbling? He wondered. It had been a long time since breakfast. But the rumbling was not coming from George's stomach. Uh-oh. George, oh no. George stepped on the lever. I'm afraid he might have gotten the truck to start. Oh no. Oh no. It was coming from the back of the truck. George was curious. He climbed out of the window. Then, like only a monkey can, he swung up to the top of the truck, and then he could take a look, and he saw that the truck was filled with dirt. George was excited. What could be better than a truck full of dirt? George jumped right in the middle of it. Look at that. George is jumping into the dirt. It tilted higher and higher, and then the dirt began to slide. It was sliding right into the pond, and George slid with it. George was having fun. Now the pile on the pond got bigger and bigger and bigger. And soon the fun was gone. He dumped that dirt. That dirt got dumped. Just then, where is that gardener? Just then, the gardener came and back from lunch and stood with their mouths wide open. They saw the empty dump truck, the pile of dirt in the pond, and a very muddy monkey. They knew just what had happened. But before they could say a word, George heard a familiar sound. What is that familiar sound? He heard loud squawking. The gardeners heard it too. They heard people laughing. "Look," said a girl, "the ducks have their own island." Oh, now the ducks have an island. Indeed they did. The pile of dirt made an island in the pond, and Mother Duck and the ducklings were waddling right on top. Well, that's kind of nice. They now have their own island. George was sorry he had made such a mess, but the gardeners didn't seem to mind. "We are planting some trees and flowers to make a park nicer for people," said the gardeners. "But you've made a park nicer for the ducks, too." Oh, so it all turned out okay. Later, a small crowd gathered at the pond. "Would you like to help us feed the ducks?" a girl asked George. George was delighted. Soon everyone was enjoying the park more than ever before, including the ducks, who were the happiest of all with their new home. Oh, so things turned out okay. The end. Well, Sullivan, that was a nice story about George. Something that seemed like maybe it was going to be a mistake. It turned out okay. Everything turned out okay. And everything usually does turn out okay. Everything usually turns out for the best and the easiest. See you later. Bye.